Hey everyone! So this will be my first live video answering the questions that you have given to me to answer. This first question came from Anita, but I think I've answered it a million times over the 15 years I've been a funeral director. And even when I first started working in the funeral home in high school, I wondered, or I was always asked by people who wondered, why the heck are you working in a funeral home? Well, I needed a job. So it was an easy transition for me to work in the funeral home because that's where my mom was. And I never knew at the time that I had interest. I would peek around corners, seeing what was going on, watching families walk in for the first time. I would ask questions that I didn't realize were odd, maybe to a normal person to ask, but I would ask them. I always enjoyed learning new little things. And when I went off to college, I had interest in epidemiology, and I had interest in forensic pathology and forensic psychology. So junior year of college, my mom said, why don't you try funeral directing? And I said, fine, I'll just do it. As always, moms are always right. We never give them enough credit, do we? And so I tried my apprenticeship, and it took 1 week, and I worked with a family I will remember forever. And I knew that this was my path, that God really meant for me to happen upon this. And I've tried to deviate over the years, as different people entered my life, as different opportunities came along. I've wondered, should I stay on this path? Just recently, I've thought, now that I have 2 little girls, they're my main focus, and maybe I should step away from the business. But I've thought, I don't know how I can balance it all, but God sends me back on the path to do this work. I got to care for a family friend last week that died, and kind of just reiterated to me, I'm where I need to be. I'm doing what I need to do. It's just figuring out how to do it to balance with my life now. I think that there's been 2 things. For Anita, I tried to come up with a way to answer this so that it wasn't my boxed answer. Because I've answered this question so many times, and I think you fall back in that routine of how to answer things. Thank you, Gail. You're so sweet. I forgot I need to look down and see what people are actually writing. And so I came up with the 2 things that I think are the main reason that I come back around to this business and that I love it so much. The first is people. Like, I get to meet every type of person. I love old people. I love their stories. I love hearing how the people that have been married 60, 70 years met way back in the day. They met, they dated for a week, and then they got married. And it wasn't this elaborate dating as it is now. There was no texting. There was no elaborateness to it. It was just this simple romantic thing when people met. And I love hearing those stories. I love hearing about farmers who are the most hardworking people, and getting to appreciate all these different professions I never would have heard about, and getting to hear about times in our history that I never would have heard about. And I just love that. So getting to work with different kind of dynamics of people and different groups of our society. Motorcyclists, like motorcycle groups funerals, are one of my favorites. I have to share that. They show more emotion, I think, than any group of people I've ever worked with. Shout out to Shauna, because I think I saw, both my Shaunas that I know ride with their Harley groups, and they are just so emotional and no holds barred, which you would never expect. And I think that's what I love, is you get to see sides of people you would never expect. So you can't judge anybody, because I'm always caught off guard by, the guy in overall is a millionaire, and the, I don't even know. There's so many times that I think I've been jaw on the floor, because you meet somebody and you find something out and you're like, really? Wow, that's totally impressive. And you never know when that moment's going to come, and I love that about the business. I think the second thing that I love the most is giving that final moment to people, especially when it's a restorative moment. So back when I was just working in the funeral home, before I had even thought about going into this business, I was working alongside a director who was probably the most meticulous funeral director I've ever worked with. He spent more time on the fine details of straightening a jacket and picking every little piece of lint off of somebody before the family came in. And he was amazing. And I loved watching him work because of the attention to detail he had. And he had gotten a gentleman ready who had killed himself, and he had shot himself in the head. And I thought, how in the heck are we having a funeral? It was my first time ever encountering a visitation with suicide and a service with suicide. I didn't know what the heck was going on. And he said, do you want to come in and see the guy? And I was like, okay. And he was in his casket already. And I was like, didn't he shoot himself? And he's like, yeah, right there. And I couldn't tell. And I was blown away that he could give that moment back to a family and take that that sad remembrance of what that end had been like to somebody, and he gave that back to them. And that was so amazing to me. And fast forward several years later, I'd been a funeral director for maybe a year or two, and I got to have that kind of same moment with a family. And a teenage boy had killed himself, and I thought, what am I going to do here? And it took a lot of work in the prep room, you know, a lot of restorative wax and moving hair from this side of his head to this side of his head to kind of cover what was going on. And the mom walked in and she said, oh my God, thank you for giving me my son back. Like, what? Like, how could I not want to go to work every day if I can have that kind of moment, even one day in 10 years? Like, that's amazing. So it's those moments that I think I live for, and I love getting to do for people. Even last week, I got to take care of our family friend, and you know, his wife said the same thing. Thank you for giving him back to me where he didn't look sad and old and tired, and you know, just restoring a little bit to somebody and giving them that peaceful moment, whether they're going to be cremated and they just get one more moment with them, or whatever the case. Getting to give those moments back to people, I think, is the second biggest reason I do what I do. So I love the business, and I hate calling it a business because it's a lifestyle for a funeral director. It's not just going to work every day and going home. Your work always goes home. And so it's committing to a life of this. But that's why I do what I do. So I hope that answered your question, Anita. And if anybody else has any other questions, feel free to ask me. I love talking about the business. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.